Trevor had always found solace in the soft glow of his phone screen, especially in the deep quiet hours of the night. Living alone in a modest apartment near the college campus, he often felt the silence around him was too heavy, too still. It was a small space, just enough for a student. A bed against one wall, a desk cluttered with textbooks and coffee cups, and a small closet crammed with clothes and boxes. The nights often stretched long, filled with the hum of his thoughts and the distant sound of the city. His nightly ritual involved scrolling through social media, a mindless activity that helped him wind down. His phone was his lifeline, a tether to a world buzzing with life and chatter, so different from the stillness of his apartment. Friends' posts, funny videos, the occasional late-night chat, it was all a comforting, familiar routine. Tonight was no different, or so it seemed. The clock on his phone screen read 2:03 a.m., the numbers glowing against the darkness of his room. Trevor was curled up in bed, the soft blanket pulled up to his chin, his eyes half closed as he flicked through his feed. That's when the notification popped up, a live stream invite from a user he didn't recognize. Curiosity pricked him. It was unusual to get such notifications this late. With a lazy finger, he tapped on the link, expecting perhaps a gamer playing or someone's late-night rant. The live stream loaded, and Trevor's heart froze. The video was a live feed from inside his own closet. He could see the edge of his blue hoodie, the frayed poster he tacked to the inside of the door. But it was the angle that sent a chill down his spine. It was as if someone, or something, was broadcasting from within, hidden among his clothes and forgotten junk. His eyes flicked up to the closet, just a few feet away. It was slightly ajar, just like in the video, but nothing else seemed amiss. He could hear only his own breathing, rapid and shallow, and the distant sound of a siren wailing outside. Tentatively, Trevor swung his legs out of bed and approached the closet. His heart pounded in his chest, each step feeling heavier than the last. He reached out, his hand trembling, and flung the closet door open. Nothing. Just clothes, boxes, and the familiar musty smell. No sign of anyone or anything that could be streaming. He checked his phone again. The live stream was still running, the closet now empty from his perspective. But there was no one there. No camera, no phone, nothing. Confused and a little unnerved, Trevor closed the app and tried to laugh it off. Probably just a weird glitch, he thought. Or maybe someone's idea of a sick joke. He climbed back into bed, but sleep didn't come easy that night. Every creak of the apartment, every shadow cast by the streetlight outside, seemed ominous. And so began the strangest, most terrifying chapter of Trevor's life. The next night, Trevor lay in bed, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, the events of the previous night replaying in his mind. He had almost convinced himself that it was all a bizarre prank, perhaps a hacked account or some sort of augmented reality trick. He had even laughed about it with a few friends online, who suggested he set up a camera to catch the prankster. As the night deepened, his phone buzzed again with another notification. His heart skipped a beat. It was another live stream invite from the same unknown user. Trevor hesitated, his finger hovering over the screen. Curiosity mingled with a sense of dread. With a deep breath, he tapped to view the stream. There it was again. The inside of his closet, slightly more cluttered than he remembered. The angle was different this time, lower, as if the phone was placed among the shoes on the floor. There was no sound except for what seemed like faint rhythmic breathing. Fueled by a mix of fear and determination, Trevor jumped out of bed and strode to the closet. He flung it open, half expecting to find someone crouched among his belongings. But again, there was nothing. No sign of any device or person. Yet, the live stream continued, showing the empty closet from within. This time, Trevor noticed something else. A jacket he hadn't worn in months was now hanging in the front, as if someone had sifted through his clothes. His heart pounded in his ears. He quickly shut the closet, backed away, and spent the night with the lights on, the image of the live stream burning in his mind. Over the next few days, the nighttime live streams became a terrifying routine. Each stream showed subtle changes in the closet: a shirt moved, a box repositioned. Trevor started noticing things around his apartment slightly amiss. A book not where he left it, a cup turned in a different direction. He shared his concerns with friends, but their reactions were mixed. Some thought it was a sophisticated prank, others suggested it might be a stalker, and a few even joked that he had a ghost. Trevor tried to laugh along, but a creeping sense of paranoia began to take hold of him. He started having trouble sleeping, and when he did, he was plagued by nightmares of shadowy figures and unseen eyes watching him. The apartment felt less like a home and more like a stage, where unseen forces moved objects just to unnerve him. It was during one of these sleepless nights, lying in bed and staring at the darkened ceiling, that Trevor heard it for the first time: a whisper. It was so faint, he thought he had imagined it. But then it came again, a hushed, unintelligible murmur, like a secret being shared in the dead of night. That whisper marked the beginning of a new, more unsettling phase. Shadows seemed to flicker in the corners of his eyes. His own reflection in the mirror seemed to linger a little too long. The apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison, and Trevor, its haunted inmate. The live streams grew more frequent and disturbing. Each night, as the clock neared midnight, Trevor braced himself for the notification. The streams no longer just showed the interior of his closet, they began to capture movements, a shadow passing, a hanger swinging gently, as if disturbed by an unseen presence. His friends' assurances began to sound hollow. They suggested he contact the police, but what would he say? That his closet was broadcasting a live stream on its own. He could almost hear the skepticism and disbelief in their voices. One evening, the live stream showed something new, a drawing on the back wall of the closet, a place Trevor was sure had been bare. It was a crude childlike drawing of two figures, one significantly larger than the other, both with unnaturally wide smiles. This new development sent a shiver down Trevor's spine. He checked the closet, but the wall was blank, just as he remembered. Things escalated quickly after that. Items began to disappear and reappear in different places. Trevor would find his toothbrush in the kitchen, his shoes in the bathroom, and once, his phone hidden in the freezer. The whispers grew louder, more frequent, no longer just at night, but in the quiet moments of the day. Sleep became an elusive, almost forgotten luxury. Dark circles formed under Trevor's eyes, and his skin turned pale from constant worry. He jumped at the slightest sound, and the reflection in the mirror seemed to watch him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. Desperate for a reprieve, Trevor decided to spend a few nights at a friend's place. He packed a small bag, making sure to take his phone with him. That night, in the unfamiliar yet comforting surroundings of his friend's guest room, he felt a sense of relief. Maybe it was all in his head, he thought. Maybe a change of scenery was all he needed. But as he lay in bed, scrolling through his phone to distract himself, the dreaded notification popped up again. A live stream invite. Hesitantly, Trevor opened it, his heart sinking. The stream was no longer from his closet. It was from the closet in the guest room, the door slightly ajar, just like back at his apartment. The same angle, the same eerie silence, punctuated by the soft, unnerving sound of breathing. This was no coincidence, no trick of the mind. Something was following him, something that wasn't bound by the walls of his apartment. Fear gripped him like never before. Whatever was happening, it was real, and it was not going to let him escape so easily. That night, the live stream showed something that chilled Trevor to his core. Within the dark confines of the closet, a figure was barely visible. It was shrouded in darkness, its features indistinct, but its presence was undeniable. It stood motionless, except for the slight, unsettling tilt of its head, as if it was staring directly at Trevor through the screen. Trevor's heart pounded against his ribcage. This was no longer about strange occurrences or misplaced items. There was someone, or something, in the closet. The terror that gripped him was visceral, a primal fear that rooted him to the spot. Gathering every ounce of courage, Trevor decided he needed to confront whatever was in the closet. He wanted to end this nightmare once and for all. He picked up his own phone and started a live stream, intending to capture whatever he found and show it to his friends, to prove he wasn't losing his mind. The house was silent as he approached the closet, his live stream running, his viewership growing as word spread of his bizarre confrontation. He reached for the closet door, his hands trembling, the phone's light casting long, eerie shadows. As he opened the closet, the figure was nowhere to be seen. The closet was just an ordinary closet with clothes and boxes. But then, Trevor noticed something odd about the back wall. It seemed to yield slightly when he pressed against it. With a mix of fear and curiosity, he pushed harder, and to his astonishment, the back panel swung open, revealing a narrow, hidden compartment. The air was cold and stale, and a sense of dread overwhelmed him. The live stream audience watched in silent horror as Trevor, driven by a desperate need for answers, stepped into the dark void. He ventured deeper, the light from his phone barely piercing the darkness. The walls felt close, claustrophobic. Then, he heard it, a soft, sinister whisper, echoing in the confined space. It was impossible to make out the words, but the tone was mocking, taunting. As he moved the phone to illuminate his surroundings, the live stream captured a chilling sight. Just over Trevor's shoulder, the faint outline of the shadowy figure appeared. It was closer than Trevor realized, its presence menacing and oppressive. The viewers typed frantic warnings, trying to alert Trevor, but he was too engrossed in his exploration. He felt something brush against his back, a touch so light yet so terrifying. Whipping around, he found nothing but the enclosing darkness. Panic set in. Trevor turned to leave, but as he did, his phone's live stream showed the figure moving, its form becoming more distinct, more threatening. It was as if the darkness itself was alive, reaching out for him. Trevor stumbled back into the closet, his breath ragged, his mind reeling with fear. The hidden compartment seemed to vanish as he tried to find it, the walls of the closet closing in on him. The live stream audience watched in horror as the feed filled with darkness, the sound of Trevor's panic breathing the only evidence of his plight. Finally, he burst out of the closet, into the safety of the lit room. He looked back, panting and wide-eyed, but the closet was just a closet once more. The live stream showed the empty space, the hidden compartment gone as if it had never existed. The figure, too, had disappeared. The live stream ended abruptly, leaving the viewers in stunned silence, their minds racing with unanswered questions and chilling possibilities. Trevor sat on the floor, his body shaking, the phone slipping from his numb fingers. The nightmare was far from over, but for now, he had escaped the clutches of whatever haunted him. In the aftermath of the harrowing experience in the hidden compartment, Trevor was a changed person. The confident, curious college student had been replaced by a shadow of his former self, one who jumped at shadows and flinched at the slightest noise. His friends, having witnessed the livestream, were now believers in his ordeal. They rallied around him, offering support and a place to stay, away from the apartment that had become his source of terror. Despite their kindness, Trevor couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, of being followed by something unseen. He moved out of his apartment, leaving behind most of his belongings. The mere thought of going back filled him with an unbearable sense of dread. He stayed with various friends, never spending more than a few nights in the same place. But no matter where he went, the feeling of a presence, like a cold shadow hanging over him, remained. He stopped using social media, avoided live streams, and even covered the camera on his phone, fearing that he would see that dreaded closet again. But the entity, whatever it was, remained undeterred. Trevor would wake up in the middle of the night feeling as if someone was in the room with him. On several occasions, he saw fleeting glimpses of a figure in the corner of his eye, a dark indistinct shape that vanished when he tried to focus on it. His friends saw it too, sometimes. A shadow that shouldn't be there, a reflection that didn't quite match. It was enough to convince them that Trevor wasn't suffering from delusions. Something inexplicable and terrifying was happening. As time passed, the occurrences became less frequent, but they never entirely stopped. Trevor learned to live with a constant undercurrent of fear, a sense of never being completely alone. The experience had taken its toll on him. He was quieter now, more withdrawn. His eyes always had a haunted look, as if he was perpetually bracing himself for the next encounter. His friends worried about him, but there was little they could do to ease his torment. Trevor's story spread among his acquaintances, then further afield. People were fascinated and horrified by the tale of the livestream from the closet, and the dark figure that seemed to exist in the periphery of reality. But for Trevor, it was no story, it was his life, a nightmare that he couldn't wake up from. He often wondered about the nature of the entity that had attached itself to him. Was it a ghost? A demon? Or something else entirely? The not knowing was perhaps the worst part. There were no answers, only theories and speculations. Trevor moved through life like a ghost himself, haunted and wary, always looking over his shoulder, always waiting for the darkness to manifest once more. The livestream from the closet had opened a door to a realm of terror that he couldn't close, a realm that refused to let him go. Months had passed since the first chilling livestream from Trevor's closet. He had settled into a new routine, one marked by caution and an ever-present awareness of his surroundings. His new apartment was different from the old one, smaller, with fewer places for shadows to lurk. Yet, the fear never completely left him, it lingered like a persistent fog, coloring his every moment. Trevor had become adept at avoiding anything that could trigger a reminder of those horrifying events. He stayed away from social media, avoided video calls, and even covered mirrors when he wasn't using them. His world had shrunk, but in his mind, safety was worth the sacrifice. His friends remained supportive, but even they couldn't fully comprehend the depth of his trauma. They never saw the darkness in the same way he did, never felt the chilling touch of an unseen entity. To them, it was a terrifying story. To Trevor, it was a lived reality. One quiet evening, as Trevor sat reading, trying to lose himself in the pages of a novel, his phone buzzed with a notification. His heart leapt into his throat. He had been careful to disable most notifications, not wanting any unexpected reminders of that time. With trembling hands, he picked up the phone. It was a livestream invite, the first since he had left his old apartment. For a long moment, Trevor stared at the screen, a cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. He knew he shouldn't open it, knew that it would be better to delete it and try to forget. But the need to know, to see if it was truly over, was overwhelming. He tapped the notification. The livestream opened to show a dimly lit room. For a second, Trevor thought it was his new apartment, and his heart nearly stopped. But then he realized it wasn't. It was different, unfamiliar. Relief washed over him, followed swiftly by confusion and a growing sense of unease. The camera panned slowly, and then he saw it, the same dark figure, lurking in the corner of the room. It was as indistinct as ever, a mere shadow, yet its presence was unmistakable. Trevor's breath caught in his throat. The figure seemed to be looking right at him, through the screen. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the livestream ended. Trevor was left staring at his phone, his mind racing. The figure was still out there, still a part of his life. But it was no longer confined to his surroundings. It was elsewhere, a roaming darkness. The realization brought no comfort. It meant that the entity wasn't tied to a place, but perhaps to him. It could appear anywhere, at any time. The thought sent a chill down his spine. Trevor set the phone down, his hands shaking. He knew now that there would be no escape, no return to normalcy. The livestream from the closet had opened a door to a nightmare that was far from over. The darkness had a reach that extended beyond walls and screens, a presence that lingered in the periphery of his existence. As he sat there, alone in his quiet apartment, Trevor understood that the fear would always be a part of him. It was a shadow that would follow him, always just out of sight, always waiting. The story of the livestream from the closet had no end, for the darkness was still out there, somewhere, an unseen specter in the vast, unknowable night.